So what I'd like to do is we're not going to get every single one of those points down, and my guess is from having done this a number of times, chances are that there is a lot of similarities between some of the groups. So what I'd like to do is, if we could, is sort of just work through, as you look through your list, if there was one that maybe you spent a little bit more time on discussing or had a little bit more relevance than others, think of that. And what I'll do is I'm just going to go through each group, get one of your points, we'll discuss it, extrapolate it on a little bit if need be, and if not, until we have a good list. So I said, we won't get a totally exhaustive list, but we'll get at least a good list to start. We'll spend a few minutes on the first one, which are what are real-world, behavioral-based, trust-building types of activities that can occur between team member to team member, over a period of time. So let me start with this group, and what was one of the ones that you talked about?
Sharing experiences on a daily, monthly basis.
Can you give me a little bit more why you came up with that one, or what was your discussion around it?
Or so we can update each other's information, so you know what the other person is doing. So if you go away or something, you can trust the other person to help maybe with the workload, because a lot of our group has social workers, and they seem to do that.
Right.
As a group as a whole.
Right.
So there's a trust building process that they have. They leave lists for members, so when they are away, they can help pick up the slack, or if something, a team member did something that was, helpful to the other team members, and
instead of them having to reinvent the wheel and go through that whole learning curve. But again, it's one of those things that you hope this occurs spontaneously within a workplace, but let's face it, sometimes it doesn't. So that's why I wrote the formalized, by having a formalized sharing session. So again, it doesn't have to be formal in the sense of around, once again, a big boardroom table, but again, we're gonna do a half an hour Tim's break, and we're actually gonna get something done and actually bring in some coffee and muffins or whatever, and actually let's talk about some of the experience we've had so we can learn from each other. So formalizing it versus hoping it's just going to happen spontaneous is not a bad way to go. Not a bad way to go. It's simple, it's straightforward, but very effective. I'm sure those that are involved, as I see nods of heads, yeah, effective. How often do you do that, or do you have a set time, or is it?
We have weekly team meetings.
Right.
And then weekly, daily, we check in with our team members.
Right.
We're always available, always conversing.
Right.
I think that's what we were talking about. The three of us. It's just the nature of our work is that you have to be able to go to your coworkers and talk about what just happened. What do you think? And just draw on their experiences. Have they gone through this? Would they handle it differently? Because we're talking about emotions and decisions.
I was going to say your vocation lends itself to that to a certain extent more so. And that's why I think it's great. And for those that doesn't lend itself, hence the reason why it needs to be more formalized. Right. Perfect. That's great. What's another one? And again, if one of yours that came up, let's go to another one on your list. Let me go to the next group. Yeah, what was one of your other trust-building type of activities that you had?
Open door policy.
Okay.
Always being available to help.
Okay.
Questions.
You know why I haven't written it down yet, right? I went for the how. Yeah, okay. Open door policy. I like
You
it.
need to communicate that to them, though, and let them know that they can come to you. So it all goes down to communication.
Okay. Okay. I'm with you, 100%. I still want to get a little more detail though. So if we say, and again, this is for the whole group, not just for your group. We say we have an open door policy. How do we actually behaviorally demonstrate that we have an open door policy outside of having our door open? Which usually means nothing, by the way. Which usually means, because I worked with someone once that had an open door policy, their door was always open, but their desk was actually in the corner facing away, so the back was what you saw. It didn't go over very well. People did not feel like they could approach this person because of the way that the person was sitting. Now, whether that was true or fantasy land, I don't know, but it negated the philosophy of an open door policy.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? Because you're right, Andrea and her team have come up, that's a great idea. So how do we demonstrate that?
Actually attend to their needs when someone comes to see you.
Okay. So actually, instead of just saying, I come back later, which I know we sometimes have to do, but actually sort of stop what you're doing and actually take the time, where possible, of course. We always know there's going to be exceptions. So stop and take the time. Now, this could also be from team leader to team member too, right? We're talking team member to team member, but it fits with both. So stop and take the time then. Okay. What might be another variation on that theme?
Asking for feedback and accepting it.
Yeah. Yeah, asking for the feedback. It's one thing to get feedback, but be proactive and say, guys, I have an open door policy, great, but actually going to the staff once a week, once a month, once whatever it is, and say, guys, I need your input, I need your feedback on this. So asking for feedback, not just waiting for it, not just waiting for it to, mysteriously appear in your office one day. Okay, excellent. Let's move on to another one. Thank you. Another one as we move around from team member to team member, trust building type of activity or skill or
deal with your issues. What I kind of mean by that is if you have a conflict with somebody, go deal with it. Don't gossip about it. Don't complain about it.
I'm hesitant to use the word confront because it has a negative intonation, but it doesn't. Confront is not a negative in the true sense of the word, but it is dealing with it versus, like you said, you're confronting directly. Now, there's a whole ton of communication skills you need to do that well, which a lot of people don't have, unfortunately. Hence, again, that might be something in a leadership role or someone who's good at that. That could be something as an internal training session either as, how do we communicate to each other in an appropriate manner? But you're right, as opposed to what the natural human reaction is, which is, we're just going to avoid this, but then I'm going to talk about to everyone else in the office. Right? Not good. Right? You know what I mean? We've all been there. We've all been involved in those. And going along with that is just refusing to get involved in those conversations when you're in that situation, right? If you're one of the people that are, you've got the ear for the gossip monger, you're contributing to it, are you not? By listening, going, okay, I'll listen to you again. I mean, you're contributing to it, right? Hate to say it. No, I know it's hard not to, especially some of the gossip, some of the juicy gossip stuff is always fun. We're human beings, but you're right. I mean, and you guys know this as well as I do. This stuff can get out of control, and it can become a real, huge demotivator for a team of people, especially if they work in close proximity to each other. So all joking aside, we know we're never going to get zero tolerance. We know that. But at least if we try to go for a zero tolerance, hopefully it'll become better than maybe what it already is. So I think, we joke about that, but I think it's important. So I'm just going to put an additional one is to avoid, the gossip wherever possible, because that can become fairly poisonous. Okay? Any other ones? Yeah.
I wanted to add,
Sure.
with some team members, they're not very comfortable in a team setting to express their ideas,
Right.
positive or negative. And so if you have a good rapport with one of your team members that you know is like that, you can, check in with them and get some really, really great ideas or some, feedback and help them either be a vehicle to bring that or encourage them, say, I think that's a really, really good idea and you should bring it up. And they're just not comfortable doing it in a big setting.
No, it's well said. You're right. And I see that as a guy that's been training and instructing for years. I use the same philosophy. I do a lot of train the trainer, teach the teacher type courses. They're some of the ones I've done for years. And one of the things when I'll say that to new instructors who are teaching, let's say, a course, even something like this, is that just because there are some people that don't communicate or participate with me, like we're doing right now, like Catherine, you are with me right now, but other people, that's why one of the reasons we do smaller group work is if you contribute in a smaller group, but Michael's the guy that ends up talking, does that mean your contribution is any less worthy? Not my books, it doesn't. So some people, you have to respect that personality or just how they're built, that, I don't want to give it in a team, but I'll talk to you, Catherine, and bring it forward, on my behalf at the next team meeting. At the end of the day, you're still contributing to the team, right? It's just not a direct, it's an indirect approach in. But, that respects, I think, people's different communication styles and learning styles, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a great idea. Anything else before we move on to the team leader, team that is sort of a burning one you want to get up here? Burning maybe is a little too strong, but.
It wasn't burning.
Okay, but smoldering kind of?
Well, for honesty between team members, I think like we were talking about having lunches or coffee breaks or something, or having a sort of informal socializing within the team. Just check in with each other, make sure, see how you guys are doing. Don't just all sit at your own little desks, but.
Right. Right. Again, I think the informal, right? There's nothing more troublesome, I guess, than being mandated to socialize. Right? You will go to this function, you will have fun, you will build a team. No. My kid's sick, I'm not going. You know, I mean, so it's that informal. It's a balance, but again, every group's a little different. But I think there is value in that. There is definitely value in that informal socializing. Some groups take it to the extreme, right? Other groups, you know, there again is the balance, and other folks don't do it at all. So there's a balance of that. It's a balance of that. It's good. A couple more for this side before we finish up on the other side. Check the time here. Okay. Okay. So, team leader, team member. A lot of the similar ones can be done with a slight variation, but maybe you have some very specific ones in that arena. Let's get some of those out. So I'm not going to go around each group. Let's just grab ones as they come out that I can get down here. Again, let's be real behavioral with this. You've got to be able to see these behaviors. What can we do?
Consistency.
Consistency.
With all employees.
Okay, so give me an example. Again, you know where I'm going, the how. Consistency in terms of...
I'm going to give you 5 minutes off because you have a doctor's appointment, but I'm not going to give the next person 5 minutes off because they're really not a good employee.
So, rules, regulations.
My kid plays on your kid's hockey team, so I'm going to give it to you.
Day-to-day. Yeah, day-to-day tasks. Yeah, you know, and that's one of the hardest things, probably. You know what? And one of the things I've learned as being a manager or team leader in many different things over the years is no matter what you do, you'll never keep everyone happy. I think that's the reality, but that doesn't mean as a leader you shouldn't be focused on trying to maintain a neutrality.
That's
even when you do it.
The thing that most managers phone me about in a day.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I do this? And I always say yes, but you have to be expected to do it to everybody.
Right.
You know, you're making a rule here.
Yeah. You're right. That's a fair comment. That's probably one of the bigger things that I probably hear, and now I think about it, in my travels as well. Okay? Good. What else? Yeah.
Make sure credit is given to the individual members. Like, you know, if somebody says, your team did a fabulous job, you know, thank you, and pass that recognition off to the team, but also make sure that the person you passed it on to knows that it was the individual team members who get the credit and have an opportunity.
And again, that all comes back to that conversation we had earlier about the pie. You know, if you think your leadership is a fixed pie, you don't want to give that credit because that takes away some from your pie. But if you look at it that, you know, we're in this together as a team with a bigger pie, then you've got no issues giving that credit and passing it down. And I know for me, personally, I've seen that and I've done it myself with people that have worked for me in the past, and you can just see it makes their day when that is passed down appropriately. That's a real motivator for people.
I was given an award once. It was quite some time ago, and it was given to. It was like getting the close. I work in finance, so it was getting the closest in our region to the budget projection.
Right.
And I had worked really hard on that, and I got recognition because we had like a province-wide contest for all the financial officers, and our region had won, and that's something that I did. Recognition was given to me, which was great. I felt really good about it, but also given to her. But she doesn't really work with me.
Yeah.
And she was really happily taking credit for it.
Right.
And I got to tell you, it totally devalued what was done. I just thought,
right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
But
Right.
you know what I mean? It was like, make sure you give credit where credit is due.
Sure, sure. It's like what they do, again, I look back, and it's different when they're 6.
Yes.
But it's different. I go back, I always use these hockey examples with my son because you see so much of this. When they were 6 or 7 and they were in a tournament, every kid got a little trophy. Didn't matter if they didn't even stand up on the ice, didn't matter if they didn't. They got a trophy and the kids were, you try to do that with a group of 11-year-olds, you go, this is a piece of garbage, why am I getting this? Like, all of a sudden it doesn't mean anything anymore because it's not truly recognition, right? And that's really, I think, what you're saying as well, is that the credit's got to be given and it's got to be earned and all that good stuff. Absolutely. And the other thing you have to take into account here, you know, if you're in a team leader role, one thing you do have to be careful of is this is where you have to know your team members' thoroughness, and not thoroughness, but more their personality is. Some people love to be, you know, given that reward in front of 500 other people. If you did it for other people in front of 500 people, they just shrink and say, no, I don't want her. So you kind of have to know a little bit. Some people like public recognition, some people like private recognition. That's the other little thing you have to key in on, because I've run into that problem myself, not knowing this, where I've, you know, made a big stink with a whole group of people about someone that I thought, well, they're really going to like this public recognition. They come to me afterwards, Tony, never again. If you're going to recognize me like that again, I don't want to be recognized. But, oops. But you learn that through experience, unfortunately. So recognition is very important, but how you carry it out is somewhat important as well, which I think is a valuable point. So I hand up over here or there. Margaret, then Ken. Yep. Margaret, sorry? Was it?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe it's come up with a good one. I think advocacy, which sort of
sorry?
advocacy for your team.
Oh, advocacy. Sorry, I just said it a little different. Right. Right. Yeah, that's okay.
So basically, bringing up issues that your team is dealing with, either upwards or wherever it should go, and actually dealing with it, and then bringing feedback to what has been done. I think that creates an enormous trust that whatever is said is actually going somewhere and is being dealt with.
Well, yeah, you know, it's one of those sort of things that when you're giving input into something, or to someone about something, I should say, and you say, that's great, thank you for that feedback, Margaret, you know, I'm going to use that, I'm going to take that, and then you never hear the result of it, and never see the result, you sort of say, am I just throwing this up into a black hole, and then it's just sort of, you know, getting evaporated somewhere up in the, you know, the solar system? People know, I mean, it's one of these sort of things that if you put, especially if you put input up, you somehow have to complete that loop and say, you know what, I'm sorry, Margaret, we tried with that idea, that was a great idea, hold on to those, we couldn't pass it through this year, I'm hoping to next year. As long as people know that something's being done with it, they'll give you more of it. Once they don't think you're doing anything with input, guess what? It starts to dry up after a while. I mean, you think about it, it's common sense, but we sometimes forget that common sense in the world of work.
The word we threw out for that, just what you explained, was the transparency.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you. That's great. Okay.
It's actually it's just kind of along the lines of transparency is do as you say and say as you do.
Yeah.
So we can be honest about your intentions.
Yeah. And if I can just put it a little bit more even behavioral, is sort of carry out, as long as it's not putting words in your mouth, carry out the commitments. You know, I mean, like, one of the things I have learned, and again, I'm involved with this food company back east where I have an ownership portion of this company, and I'm there still quite a bit. And I'm part of the director team, and one of the things with us, and everyone else has another job and a profession, so we're only there once in a while. And one of the things I have learned, and people have learned about me, and we've learned about each other, is I won't commit to something if I know I can't do it. There's not a hope, even though it might make people feel good at the time that I commit to it, oh yeah, I'll take care of that. I know what impact that has on me and my reputation when I can't come through. And we have two polar extremes in my group. And the other guy I know really well, he's been my accountant, he was my roommate in university a million years ago. He's part of this team as well. And he's the classic the other way, commits to everything. Very rarely comes through that. And so what's happened is, over time, is as soon as he says something, and it's usually me, because I know him well enough, I can call him, I go, okay, now Tom, are you going to really do that? Is that realistic for next week? Because aren't you going away this weekend? Don't you have like a birthday thing going? And go, nah. I said, okay, so let's move on. Who else? Like I'll have to call him on. Me, sometimes I get a bit of a hard time from the group because it seems like I don't commit to anything, but I said, I'm only going to commit because I'm traveling to things I know I can go through on. I said, I'd rather, meet my commitments, even if they're only a couple of commitments, than overcommit and not meet them. And that's just the way I, truly believe that I like to work. And so it's funny the different ways you can look at that. But it's funny with Tom now, because as soon as he says, yeah, I'll do that, the whole management team looks at him and goes, And usually we don't have to say anything now, he'll just back off and say, okay, I'll take one of those 3 tasks then that I said I would take. But at least now we know sort of the level.
Well, at least he's got passion.
Oh, he does, yeah. He's a people pleaser. We always call him, he's a people pleaser. He wants to please, but what happens when he doesn't come through is he really displeases people, and that's, it's a...
Setting him up for...
Yeah. Any one last thing, and then that's going to be our entrance to lunch.
Backing up stuff.
Backing up stuff meaning...
Backing them up?
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, so back up and support. And again, how would we see that? How would we see that?
Well, you could see that by the team is doing things a certain way. You've given direction to do it a certain way. All of a sudden, no, you're told to do it a different way. What are you doing? Doing it that way. So it's important for the leader to say, I asked them to do it this way, and this is why.
Right.
So it doesn't come back on the individual when it shouldn't.
Right.
Right?
So explain the rationale, the why, and all that.
Yeah.
I agree. Last but not least.
I was just thinking in times there, everyone always has wonderful ideas, and you want to embrace these maybe as yourself as an individual, but at times there's just no time for that.
Right.
That brainstorming thing is out the window, and so how you can deal with that is just kind of like say it right away, like those times have now passed. And,
Or for this issue, that has passed.
That's right. So I mean, you as a leader, you have to say that, and then but if it's unclear, people still tend to want to make changes,
Right.
and there's just no more room for that, more time.
Right. And that's got to be clear up front.
That's
and,
right.
and it actually fits it nicely to where we're going to go this afternoon. We get into the problem solving, the team problem solving, because part of the successful team problem solving is not only the dynamics of the actual interaction, but it's sort of the ground rules and the constraints you put on it beforehand, so people know exactly what's expected of them and how far this decision goes or doesn't go. And that's kind of important. So we'll get into that this afternoon and have some fun. So there'll be some skill building stuff this afternoon that we're going to work on and actually get a chance to practice some of this.